we're going to try this again since my last video did not work the way I wanted it to. I thought that I had sound and I didn't, so we're trying this again. So we're going to go through the anesthesia machine, both rebreathing and non-rebreathing circuits, plus a pressure check. So let's go ahead and get started. Picture number 1 and place number 1, we have our green oxygen tanks. Oxygen tanks are always going to be green to symbolize their contents are O2. They are under a lot of pressure. I believe it's 2200 psi in an E tank. We also have our second piece, which is our yoke. The yoke for a O2 oxygen tank only allows the green tanks to be connected. And when you start, you always want to make sure that your oxygen valve is open so that oxygen is flowing through the system. We also have our pressure manometers. I don't know how to make that go away. Pressure manometers telling you how much pressure is in the tank. And these tanks are usually labeled with a tag in order to tell you whether it is full or empty or the contents of the tank. From there, we go to our green O2 tubing, which carries the oxygen from the green O2 tank to the flow meter. Flow meter is going to be this handy dandy little gentleman here. We have our ball bearing, which indicates how much you have, and your O2 flush valve, which we'll get to when we go through the needs for a pressure check. From the flow meter, you can see that we're going over here, and that's going to lead us to our vaporizer, which takes the liquid solution and turns into a vapor that can be mixed with the O2 and delivered to the patient. You can either use isoflurane, as you see here, or you can sometimes use sevoflurane. It depends on the clinic. These little notches here indicate the percentage in which things are going in and out. From the vaporizer, you're then going to go up to your it's going to go through this black tubing here, and it's going to go up to your inspiratory valve. We're using an F tubing system here, so this is your inspiratory. It's going to be the F tubing, and it saves a lot of dead space, so the inspiratory and expiratory valves are unidirectional. So when the patient takes a breath, it's going to go through this inner blue tubing, and then when they exhale, exhalation is going to go back through this clear tubing here and out through the expiratory tubing into the expiratory valve, and then to the pink tubing, which is the scavenge system. We also have our reservoir bag, which is used in 2 places in order to give a patient a breath, and it can also be used in the scavenge system to hold unused O2 that circles back through the system so you can give it to the patient. Then we also have our soda lime granules in this canister here. These need to be changed after every 8 hours of use. They usually turn a lavender color as they absorb more of the O2. Oh, excuse me. So with the non-rebreathing system, as you can see here, this black tubing that goes from the vaporizer is not going to be connected here. It's going to be connected to our non-rebreathing circuit, which we can get to next. Here's the pop-off valve, but we'll get to that when we go through our pressure check. So for the non-rebreathing tubing, what you're going to have is an excess valve here, which is our clear. This is going to be the end that attaches to the I believe it's ET tubing, or we'll just call it the patient is what it connects to. We're also going to have the end of our tubing, which has our reservoir bag, and then a install the pop-off valve is going to be that blue switch here that you can slide to the left or right to open or close the valve for a pressure check, and our bright blue tubing for our scavenge system. So similar to the rebreathing circuit, it's going to go up here, and it's going to go from the green O2 canister up to our flow meter, and then from our flow meter it's going to go to our vaporizer. From our vaporizer tubing, instead of being connected like so up here, it's going to be taken off from that tubing here and attached to our tubing system for the non-rebreathing circuits. As you can see, this was mid-pressure check, so our reservoir bag is inflated. Side note, the reservoir bag's size depends on your patient. There is an equation that goes for that, but we will get to that. There's also our scavenge tubing attached on the end there. Let's get to the pressure check as our last item. So for pressure checks, you're going to wait and make sure that you start with the O2 tank. Make sure that your oxygen valve is turned and the oxygen is on and flowing. From there, you are going to want to go ahead and fully close that pop-off valve, but make sure to open it immediately after you are finished. From there, you're going to go ahead and put a finger at the end of your inspiratory and at the end of your inspiratory tubing to block off any oxygen flow so that your reservoir bag can inflate. Then you're going to go ahead and hit that O2 flush valve. You only hit that valve when you are performing a pressure check, simply because it's not safe for the patient and it transfers pure O2 through the system, so it's just not safe. But when you're performing a pressure check, go ahead and push that. You're going to want to inflate your reservoir bag until your manometer reads 20 centimeters of water. You don't ever want to exceed 20 centimeters of water. Sometimes there's an exception for 30 centimeters of water, but that is strictly large animal. So in our case, it's 20 centimeters of water. You're going to want to hold that 20 centimeters of water for about 30 to 35 seconds and go ahead and check your reservoir bag and your tubing for any leaks. Sometimes you can go ahead and give that reservoir bag a small little squeeze and listen for any leaks or hissing in the system. And then once you're finished, go ahead and unscrew that pop-off valve to open it. You're going to want to squeeze any leftover air out of the reservoir bag, and then you will be all set to perform your procedure on your patient after a pressure check. That's really all I have for now. Hope you enjoyed. Any questions, feel free to send me an email about it. And that was our rebreathing and non-rebreathing systems for the anesthesia machine.